James Averis here for Fight News Australia. I'm with the XFC champion, Matt Vaile. Matt, thank you very much for joining me today. How are you doing?
How you going, bro? I'm good. Just finished training. Run time for a bit of an interview.
Yeah, nice one. So before we get into the talk about your big fight against Kitt Campbell this Friday at the Melbourne Pavilion, I want to get to know about you a little bit more and how you started in martial arts. So how old were you when you started, and what was the first martial art that you picked up?
I actually did karate when I was 8 years old, and that lasted probably 2 or 3 years, and then we stopped doing that just because it moved. And then once I was at high school, I got into sort of taekwondo style martial arts and carried on doing that for a good 12 years, and that's where I met Luke, my training partner, Luke Jamu, and got my black belt through that. Ended up getting like black belt third dan, which is, it was about 12 years. So good time good time put into that pretty much.
And when was it that you first saw MMA and was like, "Cool, I might want to give that a go"?
I think I'd actually just seen highlights of the Pride and all that back in the day, and Shinya Aoki versing some of the bigger guys, and just crazy grappling skills and everything else. Just pretty much highlight clips on YouTube and that, searching through and watching them back in the day.
And with a Taekwondo background, how do you think those skills have helped you transition into MMA?
It really gave us a strong sort of striking base, and I did a couple of kickboxing fights before I got into MMA, and they all went really well. I think it's just a good, strong striking base, and the grading system that we had is pretty solid. So just like the mental toughness has always been there too.
And are you a fan of the sport, or are you the type of guy who just likes to get in there and compete?
I don't so much watch like a whole UFC or anything like that. I definitely like seeing like the bigger fights, obviously. I don't spend a lot of time watching all the rest of them, but I think the competing is more my kind of thing.
Yeah, awesome. And I saw an Instagram post you posted about a week ago that you're training at Heartbreak Conditioning, but you told me before that you were traveling down from Auckland. Where have you been training for this camp?
So most of it's been done back in Hamilton at Core, and then in the weekends I've been going up to Balmoral Liga and training with Lolo and his guys. It's Friday, Saturdays, and then last week I was actually over in the Gold Coast, so I managed to get in some sparring over there and a couple other trainings around the way. I was there for about 3 days.
And I spoke to Luke Jamu a couple of weeks ago, and he told me about how awesome it is. Has been training with Lolo. Obviously, he's trained some of the most decorated kickboxers in New Zealand. How have you improved under his training?
Yeah, he's sort of taken a look at my style and just made improvements on sort of like things that I do well, and just sort of filling in the holes a bit, and it's made me sort of understand everything a whole lot better. It's been really good having him and sort of look over everything. We haven't really had so much of a coach figure prior to that.
And you mentioned that you do train in Hamilton and then go to Auckland in the weekends. Are you training full time, or do you still have a day job?
No, so I'm still an electrician. So I work 7:30 to 5 every day, and then get in some trainings.
How hard is that to competing at the professional level? You're knocking on the doors of the UFC, but still having to go to work. It must be pretty hard sometimes, yeah?
Yeah, it goes up and down, like depending on the day. Depending on how the day's work goes, it can alter a bit, but usually it doesn't affect it too much. Go straight from work to training, and then you won't leave till say 9 o'clock. So you just put in a solid session, and comes for the weekend. That's when you put in a little bit extra too.
Now, you're the XFC welterweight champion, but you're going into enemy territory in Melbourne to take on the Aussie for his Hex title against Kitt Campbell. What are your thoughts on the matchup? Have you studied Kitt a lot? How do you see this fight playing out?
Yeah, so I've had a brief look at a few of his videos. From what you can see, like he throws a lot of forward pressure and bringing people into sort of like the clinch, and then tries to, yeah, just be always, he's always in people's face and doesn't give them a lot of space to breathe. I feel like the things that we've been working on, we've got some real good tactics to sort of work with that, and my natural style, like a bit of a pressure fighter as well. So it's going to be a good show of who wants it most, you know.
You are quite a pressure fighter. Do you see this fight being a really exciting one for the fans, with two guys who are looking to come forward and take each other's heads off?
Yeah, for sure. Like most of my other fights, as soon as I put pressure on, a lot of people back off or run or always seek the takedowns kind of thing. I've never had a chance to really throw down as much. But yeah, I think there's definitely gonna be some fireworks going off.
And I spoke to him yesterday, and he told me he's got a lot of respect for you, thinks you're a great fighter and bet some great opponents. But he did mention that he think you may tire in the later rounds. What do you make of that comment?
Nah, well, you know, other fights I've had, it's different game tactics. Like everyone's going to be tired in the later rounds, but it doesn't mean that you're just going to give up, you know. I seen his fight with a 5 round. He was bloody tired himself, so I can't see him having a huge gas tank advantage, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And what will it mean to you to get take another belt back to New Zealand, your second Australian title, if you do manage to get the victory?
Yeah, that'll be huge, eh? Really, I just wanted to sort of prove the point of my case to why I should be in the UFC. I really want to get to that stage, and obviously going there for a few of Luke's fights is definitely where I want to be.
And do you think that a good win will get you that call up? What is the current state? Have you been in contact with Sean Shelby and the guys in the UFC at all?
There's been a little bit of talk. It's so sort of you really don't know with those guys, eh? You just got to make sure that every chance that you get counts, and then hope for the best.
Because it is two of the top welterweights in New Zealand and Australia, and there is a lot of speculation about the winner potentially getting a title shot. Do you feel any added pressure in maybe trying to get a spectacular knockout victory early to really cement your case that they should pick you, or do you not think about that sort of stuff and just want to get the win?
Nah, well, for the fight, like I'm always looking for the early finish, obviously, and I think just need that little bit of mistake or a little bit of weakness to show, and then it can get the finish, or not necessarily going out there just to try and take it easy and just last 5 rounds to try and get the win. I want to make a statement.
And you've got a very impressive record, 9-1. You won your first 5 fights dramatically with KO victories, but you did come undone against Ben Alloy. Do you think in hindsight it was maybe a bit early to take that fight, as he was so much more experienced than you?
Yeah, for sure. That's sort of one thing that, looking back now, we could have probably waited a little bit for that fight. At the time, I got offered, and it was sort of too good to let go. But we hadn't really worked on any sort of wrestling or anything like that. Like, I felt real comfortable with the stand-up with him. It's only sort of the couple takedowns each round. I think he got 3 takedowns throughout 1 round, which sort of really took the points away. I managed to get back up onto my feet, obviously. But it was really, just the points thing that altered.
A loss like that, do you also think of it as a blessing in disguise, as it did show you that you do need to work on your wrestling?
Yeah, that was one good thing about it. Sort of showed a whole lot of sort of holes I had in that sort of thing, and we went straight to work, working on all of that, and now everything around there just feels real solid, and it's been going well ever since.
And these days, how much are you working on your wrestling? Do you work more on it than your stand-up, since you already come from a stand-up discipline? Do you practice on the ground more often?
Yeah, so that's the sort of thing with mixed martial arts. You really have to choose carefully where you put all your time into, and we seem to have enough classes that we have a good balance of everything, wrestling, BJJ, and then striking. A lot of the time our striking will just be incorporated in with our wrestling, and we'll just split up the rounds into different styles, obviously.
And New Zealand does have a really strong kickboxing base with, guys like Mark Hunt coming in throughout the years. How much of martial arts have you seen develop in New Zealand since, you've been a kid in martial arts? Has the sport grown a lot, in your opinion?
Yeah, like as far as I can remember back in the day, there's always been really strong sort of like boxing and kickboxing. And then MMA sort of was lingering around, but no one really knew about it. But now it's sort of come through, and there's a lot of gyms all over the show now, and there's like not just people fighting, but people training MMA, and it's just got, it's a huge following now. I think it's really good.
And you mentioned Luke earlier. You've cornered him for a couple of his UFC fights. When you, walking him out, does that make the hunger to compete in the UFC just that much stronger?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some of those shows, man, especially the one back home with the home crowd and everything, that was just awesome, eh? Like the amount of noise they made and going out there and putting on a show, it was just epic. It's just where I want to be.
Would that be your ultimate dream, to fight in a UFC somewhere in New Zealand, maybe even Hamilton? I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I reckon one up in Auckland would be epic, eh? Like, I think that would be a bit of a dream to come true, get all the boys and all the family and friends there. It'd be awesome.
And having Luke as a training partner, you're getting to test yourself with a UFC welterweight on a daily basis. How important has he been to your development over the years?
Yeah, he's been sort of second to none, eh? Like, sort of he went away to Phuket and everything, did a couple years over there, then came back and pretty much just shared all his knowledge and everything, and we've sort of just growing together and just up. And obviously, the better we both get, we make each other work harder, and it's just worked like that. It's just been a blessing, really.
How much time did you spend in Phuket?
I did 3 months over there. So I got a lot out of it, eh? Right at the end of the camp, I actually got a leg infection, so I couldn't fight the one that I had planned, but I ended up fighting 6 months later.
Oh, no. So how is the training different over there to in New Zealand?
I think just the way that like the Soi Tai, the Fighters Street in Phuket is set up, it's just pretty much all for the fighters. Cheap and clean and healthy food. Everything's really easy and accessible. And then you got classes you can train 3 times a day if you're up to it, but usually like 2 times a day is max. Otherwise, just sort of stress the body and everything. Pretty much solid coaching. And then I reckon the biggest difference was probably just having the mixture of sparring partners. Like at one point we had all the top ACB Russian fighters there. There was about 10 of them. And yeah, some pretty heavy sparring rounds on the Friday nights.
Was it a lot like just going in there and having fights, since it's not really a team environment as much because you all come from different parts of the world?
Yeah. You make a few good friends, a few close friends, but apart from that, it comes to sparring, and then people start coming up to you and saying, "Oh, you're next," or "You're number 5," or something like that.
Everybody trying to prove that they're the best in sparring.
Yeah, it's good though. It brings the best out of people.
So yeah, I guess having that kind of 3-month competition, it must have elevated your game quite a bit in a short time frame.
Yeah, for sure. I made a lot of gains from that. And it they do a lot of wrestling there too, which I felt was a big improvement.
Will you look to do any more stints overseas, or do you think you're fairly well settled into a routine back home now?
Yeah, like we got a new gym just started up. They moved to a new building, so Core MMA. They got the new gym set up in Hamilton now, and yeah, the place is huge, man. They've got yeah, massive mat. I've got a cage, a ring, strength and conditioning area, everything. So I don't think we really need to go too far to get the best.
And you fought a lot of your fights under the XFC banner. How important is it having these guys to give you a platform to compete on a regular basis?
Yeah, it's lucky with XFC. Like, once I sort of got the title belt, they had a fight lined up for me every 3 months. So that's how I've come up so quickly. I had 4 fights in, I think it was last year, all in a row. So that worked really well, and it just pumped up my record really quick. Yeah.
When do you plan on heading to Melbourne?
Head over on Wednesday. Yeah, so get over there in the morning, do a few medicals, and be well into the weight cut then, and then Thursday night for the weigh-ins, and then Friday action.
And if you were to give a prediction, what do you think is going to happen?
I feel like I reckon I'm going to come away with the TKO in the 3rd round.
TKO in the 3rd round is precise. Well, there you've heard it. Matt the Viper Vaile predicting a 3rd round TKO victory over Kitt Campbell. The fight takes place this Friday at the Melbourne Pavilion. Kitt Campbell versus Matt Vaile is the main event, and it's sure to be a great fight. Thanks for joining me, Matt.
Thanks for the interview.
Cheers.